Well, that in itself was fascinating because Paul Newman and Steve McQueen, while good friends, had the natural, what shall we say, jealousy is too strong a word.
Competitive instinct?
I would say that. You don't want to give the scene away to the other guy, particularly,
right,
you know?
right.
So they would come to me separately and say, I've got the script here, I've read this scene. Why, when I go out the door, don't I have an exit line? Why does Steve, Paul would ask, have the last line? I said, well, your reaction, Paul, I said, in going out the door is your reply to the line. That's your thing. He said, well, I just as soon get to the door and say something like, and then he'd come up with a line. So I said, well, it's not a bad idea. We'll put that in. And then McQueen would come to me and say, why are you changing the scene? He said, I like the scene the way it is. And he said, now you've rewritten it, you've ruined the whole thing. I said, where have I changed it? He said, well, you've added a line of dialogue for Newman. And I couldn't say to Steve, well, Steve, Paul wanted, you know, I had to take the...
No.
So I would say, well, I just felt it didn't play his going to the door and stopping there. He'd say, okay, he goes to the door, he stops, he throws that line at me, and as it goes out the door, I say, and then I say this, right? So now I put that in, and Newman comes back and says, what's going on here? He said, you keep messing with these scenes. Well, they never confronted each other. They never sat down and said, look, don't mess with my scene, baby. The most Steve ever went was to say to me one time, look, you've got too many close-ups in this scene. He said, Paul Newman has those blue eyes. I said, well, yours aren't very black either, you know. He said, I know. He said, but you can't have too many blue-eyed guys doing close-ups. He said, it's just too much blue. He said, so kind of hold it down in the scene. He said, you got him one close-up, my two, I've got one here and one here. That's enough. Now, the director would come in and then have to go through the whole thing again.
Oh, yes.
And that really had to be something, because they truly did not want to be left just standing there in the scene.
No.
But it all worked out, and it was kind of wonderful.
You've got to be a psychologist too, Stirling, then, don't you?
Oh. Well, I'll tell you one more thing on that film. Steve came to me early on and was really very distressed with the script. And I didn't know what it was. I said, I thought you liked everything. He said, no, he said, the dialogue is very, too many words, and I don't know, I just don't like it. Well, finally it turned out he wasn't able to say certain words. And he took me in the hall one day and said, I have to tell you something. He said, I come off the streets. And he said, I'm not that educated. And he said, when you write certain words with T's and Z's and ST combinations, he said, my tongue literally has trouble enunciating it. And he said, so if I criticize you and say, I think it's too wordy, what I'm really saying to you, baby, is I can't say the words. Well, I just fell in love with the guy. So from that point on, boy, I just fixed it for him.